Did you know saving your money is a losing game? It'll never make you wealthy. And in fact, relying on savings alone is one of the biggest financial traps out there. So while you're stashing away pennies, inflation is quietly eating away at your money's value, and real opportunities for wealth are passing you by. So let me say that again. Saving your money won't make you wealthy. Investing is a real key to growing your money, and most people struggle with this question: should I save or should I invest right now? And saving is safe, but investing is where real wealth happens. So the truth is, there's a critical time for both, and knowing when to shift gears can completely transform your financial journey. So you need to know the balance between building up a safety net, like an emergency fund or cash reserves, and growing your money through investments. The answers can make or break your financial future, and neglecting this balance can leave you unprepared for emergencies, delay your retirement, or prevent you from retiring at all. So mastering will put your money to work for you. So don't get it wrong, or you can miss out on years of compounded growth. Get it right, and you're setting yourself up for financial freedom. So let's get your path started right now. So today's big question is, when should I save and when should I invest? And there's always a question that we have to answer before we decide when to save and when to invest. And of course, that is about, do you have any consumer debts? So things like car loans, credit card payments, student loans, medical bills, any sort of loans that you might have. We got to figure out what we have there. So if you have cash sitting in the bank earning, even in a high yield savings account, maybe 4 or 5%, but you have debts that you're paying, let's say on the low end, 8, 10, 12%, on the high end, maybe 20+%. We've got to get that debt paid off first. And we did a whole video about debts. We'll link that in the description below. We'll show it to you at the end. If you have debts, you got to get that paid off first, whether you're saving or investing. Once we get to that point where we have no more debts, and I'm not counting mortgages as a debt. So if you own a primary residence, or even if you were to own rental property and have a mortgage, those are not the kind of debts I'm talking about. We're talking about consumer debts. But once you have no more of those debts, and now we're trying to figure out to save or invest. Here's my philosophy on that whole saving and investing situation is this, is that depending on your job, you're talking about building up some cash, building up an emergency fund, some cash you can get to when you need it. And so to me, depending on the stability of your job, is at minimum 3 to 6 months. So if you're someone who gets paid every 2 weeks, you have a job you feel pretty comfortable in, that you feel stable about, that you're not going to lose anytime soon, you can get away with as little as 3 months, or to me, you shouldn't really have more than 6 months. But if you're someone like myself, and you guys know I'm a real estate agent, and my income can come in waves. I can make a lot of money in a short amount of time, or I might go a few months and not sell a house at all. Then I have to be a little more careful with having enough cash on hand to make sure I can pay for things. And so for me, I like to have more like 6 to 12 months of cash reserves, and it's 2 separate accounts. So for my personal life, to have those reserves, and then for my business real estate life to have those reserves. So you kind of want to have both of those put together. Now, everybody's risk tolerance and how much you're willing to have is totally up to you, but you definitely want to make sure you have some cash put to the side. So if you want to learn more about money and investing and how to build your path to wealth, click the link in the description below. It'll take you to our top 11 list of things you must know in order to get your journey started correctly. So now if we're talking about the actual investing part, there's 3 different buckets that I always like to talk about. There's the short term, I say less than a year bucket. There's kind of that 1 to 5 year bucket, and then anything that's 5 years or over. And depending on what you have cash-wise or what your situation is. So for example, if you were someone that wanted to buy a house, knew you were going to be living in a city for a long time, meaning 5 years or more, then saving up to buy a house might make sense. But if you're someone that doesn't even have that 3 to 6 months reserves built up, or you're trying to figure out where do I put that, then we want to be in a high yield savings account. So the regular standard savings accounts at a normal bank, it literally earns almost nothing. But if you can get to a high yield savings account, you can put in anywhere from, let's say, 4 to 5% is about what you're seeing right now. Some people don't have a large enough balance though. Like for example, my daughter tried to go to our bank and see if she could open up a high yield savings account. At the time, she didn't have a big enough minimum balance to meet their requirements, but usually you can find somewhere that doesn't have a minimum balance. But if you do, you can also do what's called a certificate of deposit. And so a CD at a bank will pay you a similar rate to a high yield savings account. The downside is it's locked up for a certain time frame. It might be 3 months, 9 months, 12 months, and you can't liquidate the money unless you pay some sort of penalty. So it's just a little less liquid. And if you're in a regular high yield savings account, obviously it's a lot more liquid. You can put money in or take money out at any time. So just know that's a good place to house your money. You do not want to leave it in a damn near 0% interest rate account. That just makes no sense whatsoever. Now, if you're looking at a little bit longer term, you should say 1 to 5 years, you can do a couple of different things. So most people obviously already heard of 401ks or Roth IRAs, and they're thinking about investing for the long term for their retirement. And that's great. We always want to do those, and we talk about those in some other videos. But today we're talking about saving versus investing, and you can take excess money. So let's say you've already saved up 3 to 6 months of cash. Maybe you're already a homeowner, and now you have an extra $10, $50, $100,000 you're trying to figure out what to do with. You can go to a brokerage account, open one up at Fidelity or Charles Schwab or any number of places, and you can invest in the same things that you're investing in your 401k or your Roth IRA. Now, the difference is obviously a 401k through work, you're limited to what the options are in that plan, where if you open up your own IRA, or if you're doing a separate, just regular brokerage investing account, you can invest in anything. Of course, it depends on your risk tolerance if you want to invest in individual stocks, if you want to, invest in mutual funds or ETFs. There's lots of different options out there for you, but they don't have to necessarily be in a retirement account. So just know if you're trying to build up a little cash flow or a little cash funds and you don't want it all just sitting in the bank, but maybe you're using it for a long-term investment in something else, just know you can still invest in the stock market. It doesn't always have to be in a retirement account. Now, with that being said, you also, of course, want to do those retirement accounts, and whether your company has a matching 401k program that if you're not at least getting that 100% max, you're crazy, but you also want to do that Roth IRA. And again, there's benefits, pros and cons to both. One's pre-tax, one's after tax. We can talk about retirement strategies on another video for another day as well, but just know you don't have to just leave cash sitting in a savings account. Then a longer term investment, of course, would be buying real estate. If you want to buy a house, if you're living as your primary residence, we want to get you talking to lenders. There's lots of different options as far as literally almost zero down, minimum down loans with FHA and VA programs, or more conventional 5, 10, 20% down programs. And of course, if you live in an area that's really expensive and you're like, I can't afford to buy where I live, you can always save up 20% for a down or 25% depending on your credit scores and things like that. And you can invest in rental property in another market. So for example, I sell homes in Reno, Nevada. I help people buy and sell here locally. I own a house here locally. I own a commercial building here locally. But I bought some single family residential real estate investment homes in the Midwest because one, I wanted to diversify my portfolio. Two, I could buy them for a lot less money because I bought all these homes between about $180,000 and $250,000. And so you don't need as big of a down payment or as much cash as you might trying to buy homes here in Reno, or for those of you that watch these videos that are thinking about moving here that live in even more expensive big city areas. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense on trying to maybe buy where you live if you can't afford to do it. So just know you can get in the real estate game as an investor, even if you don't own where you live, and renting isn't necessarily, a bad deal. So in order to maximize these strategies, people say, well, when do I start and when do I do these? And everyone's situation is different, whether you're a 1-income family, a 2-income family, whether somehow maybe I just had a friend who just inherited a large chunk of money because his 90-ish-year-old mom just passed away. So him and his sister both just sold a property they own free and clear for $800,000+. So you might be lucky to get these large chunks of money, then you want to be smart on how you do that. So whether you're talking to someone like myself, or you have a financial planner or a CPA that's looking at tax benefits for a lot of these things, you definitely want to reach out to some sort of expert to make sure that whether you're starting from scratch and doing this all on your own, or somehow you fall into some lump sum of cash, that you're being smart about these long-term strategies. Because again, if you've never had $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, it feels like it's a lot of money. And in the short term, it actually is a lot of money. But if you play the game correctly and don't spend it or do something silly with it, it will definitely benefit you for the very long term. So once you've done all these things, you're well on your path to doing some good wealth building. But again, everybody's situation is unique and specific. So if you have questions trying to figure out the best ways to do this, whether it is savings, debt payoff, and investing, comment below, reach out, DM me. I'm easy to find, happy to answer your questions, and we'll do more videos about some of these specific investments that you can do in the future. If you're someone who wants to know more about how to get your debt paid off, check out this video we did. It'll explain all the best ways to get your debt paid off as soon and as quickly as possible so you can get your path started to more saving and investing.